Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Driveline Baseball and Driveline Academy are proud to present to you the world's most dangerous youth baseball podcast. I'm your host, Deven Morgan, Director of Baseball at Driveline, founder of the Driveline Academy, your marble mouth host, back at you on a beautiful February day right after my wife's birthday. Happy birthday to my forever girlfriend. Hey, we got some stuff to talk about today. We're going to do a deep dive on some longitudinal hitting development. We are going to talk about some 6U baseball insanity. We are going to talk about the Savannah Bananas and disruption. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about. But before we talk about those things, first-time listeners don't know, long-time listeners do. We got to do a little bit of housekeeping. And quickly, that housekeeping is if you go to AxeBat.com, AxeBat.com, and you use the code DL20, as in Driveline 20. Simple, easy to understand, better than I just throw out another word that starts with a D, another one that starts with an L. I'm just going to say Driveline 20 will get you 20% off with our good friends at AxeBat.com. And it's the spring, so they probably have some stuff that you're going to want to check out. The other thing I can tell you is if you go to drivelinebaseball.com/training/youth, one of the things you're going to see is a button that says click here to sign up for a youth assessment. You should probably think about doing that if you want some information about where your kid is now, the things they need to work on in order to be competitive over the course of the next 6, 12, 24 months. And you can do that cheaper by using code PODCAST, PODCAST, probably the same words that you use to type in this show, so the odds that I need to spell that out for you, pun intended, are probably relatively low. But if you go to drivelinebaseball.com/training/youth, or you just go Google or Ask Jeeves or Alta Vista or Firefox or any other long since deceased browser that you might be using, and you go Driveline Youth Assessment, and you find that thing, and you find a date, and you go to checkout and use the code PODCAST, PODCAST, you're going to get 25% off. That's like a quarter of it. It's half of half. 25%. DriveLineBaseball.com/training/youth. Use the code podcast, 25% off a youth assessment. And like now's a great time to do it. Going into the spring, get ready for seasons. Get an idea of like where you stand, what you need to work on, and some stuff that you can actually implement in order to get better in this coming season. So that's probably a thing you want to check out. Cool. We've previously called this show the Driveline Baseball Youth Bummer Power Hour, or the Youth Baseball Bummer Power Hour, or some combination therein. And guess what? That title is rearing its ugly head again. We got to talk about signing day. We need to talk about signing day in youth baseball. I've seen a couple of these things, right? Like I'm in the space, so I'm not ignorant to knowing that this is a thing that happens sometimes. But I saw one the other day that was a signing day, some signing day content on Instagram for was it a 6U team? I think it was a 6U team. It was either 6U or a 7U team. Maybe it was actually 7U. Look, guys, I for 7U baseball, I got some concerns. And I saw this and I was like, man, maybe this is just me being a stick in the mud, right? Maybe this is just I have gotten old enough that, I'm going to look down my nose at derision at stuff like this and just shake my head and, the kids nowadays, right? Like, and because the parents that are doing this for their kids are, call it in their early 30s, right? I am within spitting distance of a number that starts with a 5. Definitely not the same generation of parents. Definitely not the same, repository of normalized stuff that happens with kids and the stuff that you impart to your children as you're raising them. So I really tried to talk myself into this idea that like this isn't this big of a deal. Like the kids just think it's fun and like, and maybe that's still part of it. And you tell me, you tell me. I know we have parents of younger kids that listen to this show. So if you've had your kid go through a signing day experience for a youth team that started with a single digit let's just call this like 9U and under, like, talk to me. Let me know what's good. Because as much as I attempted to talk myself into this being a thing that that was harmless, I will just share some perspective, and I guess you can come to your own decision about whether that's really a thing or not. For those that don't know, or for anybody who's like perhaps living maybe not under a rock, but under like a large, heavy, inanimate object that inhibits their ability to intake this information. Signing day is a thing that used to be reserved for high school players who were looking to sign on for a college baseball experience. And I think it makes sense why that was like a thing, because, you're talking about, call it like, I don't know, I've seen as low as 5 and maybe as high as 7% of the entire ecosystem of high school baseball players that go on to play college. Like, it's a thin number. So for those kids who go on a chance to have that type of opportunity and play at the next level, I understand celebrating that. And I also specifically understand framing it as something that's perhaps a little bit more impactful because of the age of the athlete involved, and that being something that's again perhaps a little bit more appropriate. By the time the kids are, call it 16 through 18 under the current rule set, right? Let's just call it 16, 18. Kids that age, if they've played baseball that long and they're signing on to go play college baseball, I think it's reasonable to infer that at least at the onset, they understand that there's perhaps a little bit of a greater level of expectation and consequence going on to go do this thing. I think the reason that they understand that is because of something that's related to just like the landscape of college recruiting, which is that like it's not a charity business. Like it just fundamentally isn't. And the basic math is that college coaches want to either A, keep their jobs, or B, accelerate to the next most higher paying, higher leverage, and more advantageous job. And we've made this point on the pod before. Go ahead and make it again. The reason why that's the perspective is because that's the nature of the beast, right? And like, yeah, every once in a while you'll find colleges where you'll have a head coach that's installed for a very long time, and they'll ride with that person for the duration through maybe some of the ways that the winds of change will blow win-loss record around a little bit. But they're going to make a commitment to a coach like that because of the culture they create and because of the way that they represent their university. But aside from those type of jobs, and I don't know how many of those jobs are around nowadays, a lot of college professional baseball coaching serves itself, right? Like, I want to do a good job here in order to open up the next job there and be slightly upmarket. Better opportunity, better players, better pay, better path. And with that being the landscape, again, I have beat this into the ground, but I think I still need to say it because I don't think everybody understands. Players are evaluated from both a perspective of like how much promise that they have and how much risk that they represent. And you understand as like a high school player signing on to play college baseball that, so long as you continue to give that organization leverage, or you're on path to give them leverage, and you probably have a roster spot. And if you don't, you don't. And that's just kind of the deal. So that's how it works at the top end. And with all that consequence and with that opportunity, we take that one moment with these high school kids to be like, hey, man, we're going to celebrate this thing that you did. We're going to celebrate this thing that you earned, and you earned it over the course probably of a long period of time. That's not the landscape of 7U baseball. It's just not. And it seems a little bit insane to me that we are, to a degree, not only imparting the professionalization of the experience. Hey, little Johnny, little Jane, you guys get to have a signing day just like the 17 and 18-year-olds. That's that's just a thing that we're doing, right? This is cosplay. This is cosplay. You're going to put on the uniform. We're going to sit behind a table, and you've got like, the accoutrement behind you. We're going to take pictures. We're going to make content out of it. You are cosplaying children as collegiate athletes. What that is. And again, I try to talk myself into something that has no like definitive harm, but man, it is really hard for me to not consider that if you're professionalizing this part of the experience, what are you doing for all of the other parts? How is your team culture inclusive of an organization that does this thing? What's the value prop look like to your parents? How do you communicate to your kids in the org how they're doing? Because you just professionalized their entry point. I have a hard time believing that if you're going to do that at the onset, that you're not doing that for the remainder of the experience and everything that kind of happens under your four walls or under your guys as a coach. So I'm trying to talk myself into something that this is just like a harmless thing, and it's just for fun, it's for goofs, right? And it's no different than, say, some of the in the last decade or so, right? Probably within the last decade and a half is when the first time I started seeing like team photos getting hung on the back of dugouts. And it was something that seemed to like it started in All-Stars, and then it kind of worked its way in the club and select ball scene. So you've got, these, and let's tell the truth, right? My daughter, when in one of the years that she was doing fast pitch, when she took a little bit of break from baseball because boys were smelly and kind of a pain in the ass. Okay, I let one fly. My bad. She was playing All-Stars, and they did a photo shoot, right? And they, look, we've all seen this stuff, right? Like the kids like holding a bat and the bat's on fire, or they're like throwing a ball up in the air, and and it just looks like it's levitating. Like, I've seen the photo shoots, and I've had experiences where like I'm walking around at like a youth tournament, and I'll walk behind somebody's dugout, and as I'm moving behind their dugout, I see they've got like this long, like, I don't know, 6 foot long by 2 foot 3 feet tall photo essay of the kids that are in the dugout, and they're all super serious and they're ready to go win. And I'm trying to not be a stick in the mud, right? I see this stuff and I think back to when my kid was 9. Either one of them. And if they were on a team that did this stuff, they absolutely would have participated in it. And I guess what I'm trying to tell you is that, and maybe that's just me being old. There's very good possibility. Maybe I'm just being old. But if my 9 or 10-year-old kid was participating in that thing, I would feel super cringy about sharing that content. And beyond my own personal misgivings with this stuff, I have a hard time not thinking that this is just a very like square hole round peg configuration of signals that we're sending, consequence, and experience. Because we've just gone too far, right? Like we've clearly gone too far. We've clearly gone too far. Signing day for 7U baseball. And I will accept that like maybe this is just a thing that because it was an alien thing when I was coming up as a parent, and now I'm, wife and I are like a year and a half away from being empty nesters, so different generation, and I don't know, man. If it comes across as me being judgy, then like I guess just try to receive this with some grace, because I'm really not trying to be a jerk about it. But the concern that I have is laid very bare, right? I think when you're professionalizing this aspect of the experience, it's hard for me to not conclude that you're professionalizing other aspects of the experience, and that stuff is ill fit for the social emotional well-being of kids as young as 6 and 7 years old. And if that's true at 6 and 7 year olds, it's probably also true of 9s and 10s. It's probably also true to a degree of 11s and 12s, because that whole formal operational stage, concrete operational stage, that switch into the formal operation stage and outside of concrete operational stage, courtesy of the work of Dr. Jean Piaget, that starts around 13, 14. What I'm telling you is that, like, from what we understand about, or at least what I understand about what other people understand, because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a child psychologist, but I do try to listen to and read from people much smarter than me, would suggest that the emotional maturity of these kids, combined with their inadequate ability to see the world on more abstract terms, means that we're creating like a little bit of a ticking time bomb here. I, as an adult, can look at this thing and say, yes, we're cosplaying a professionalized experience. And I could also say, you know what, that was just like a fun, goofy thing we did, and it's cool. It's not that big of a deal. It's a little bit ridiculous, but it's fine, right? I have the capacity to understand both of these ideas, and I can hold them kind of at equal value, because I understand in an abstract sense there is the thing that happened and the way that the children are receiving that, and then there's my ability as a parent to maybe send some differing signals to my kid that they don't necessarily need to think about their entire youth sport experience as being the same as a college baseball player's experience, because it's not. College baseball is about performance and development. 6U baseball and 7U baseball should be about learning. But when you do signing day for 7U, I don't know. I have a hard time accepting that if that's the opening framework for a kid's experience, that you're also going to do like, we're going to do this. We're going to equate the start of this experience the same way that we would the start of collegiate play and the start of real consequence. Because it isn't a charity case anymore. It's really less about learning. It's more about performance. But then when it comes to game day, that you have a perspective that's informed by these kids need to learn and grow and love the game. It's possible. And I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush. Maybe I'm just too old. But this stuff is concerning. And, you know, like I saw a video on Instagram that kind of triggered this whole thing. Usually when this happens, I'll either like save it for something that I'll use later, or I will, or I'll just like take a screenshot of it. And this one in particular stood out so significantly that I didn't take a screenshot because I knew I knew I'd be able to talk about it. So then I get back up here and I'm doing like my pre-show prep, and I go Instagram 7U signing day travel ball, figuring that like, well, that's just like, it's the only, there can't be this many of this stuff, right? There can't be this many instances of this content. I'm wrong. Right? I'm very wrong. You know, that one video that I saw was not like the one aberration, the one ghost in the proverbial machine. There's a lot of this stuff. And boy, you know, I guess I just don't even know what the cost is, man. I don't even know what the cost is, and I don't know how we pivot away from this stuff. Because the next generation of parents after this one is also going to see this stuff entirely normalized. And like, you know, we're not talking about 11, 12, 13s. We're talking about 6, 7, and 8-year-olds, man. Just play this game. Instagram, pick an age, signing day travel ball and see how much content that you can pull. Look at the kids' faces when they're like taking pictures of them signing these documents. Do you think they have any clue what it is that they're signing? I don't even know what they're signing, to be frank. Youth Baseball Bummer Power Hour is back. We are so back. Let's pivot into something that's perhaps a little bit less of a dumpster fire. Talked last episode about this idea that like the next time could be the last time, right? Something that ideally coaches and parents should be highly cognizant of, that like, because we're talking about kids and we're talking about kids who we want to just simply stay in the game, it's possible and to a degree likely that they are a little bit more exposed for bad thing that happens on field. I don't want to do this anymore. So, we talked about that in depth last time. If you want the full meal deal, the supersized explanation of that whole concept, just check out last week's episode. So I threw the preview thing up on socials. Got some pretty decent feedback from it. And one of the comments that I got was, I think, something that we should probably talk about in a little bit more firm terms. So the comment was, most of the coaches that are negatively influencing and negatively impacting young athletes won't care what you're saying, and they won't actually hear what you're saying. They'll turn a cheek like so many of them do. Until there's real consequences to them personally, they'll keep doing whatever they want. What's the solution for coaches who are out there abusing their authority and even abusing the athletes that they're supposed to be coaching? What's a productive solution? Good point, and I don't necessarily disagree. That post, right? The post, at least on X or Twitter, I'll still call it Twitter because I yearn for a time when Elon Musk is not owning the platform, but I digress. I understand there's like a little bit of an echo chamber, right? Like if you're going to follow me on social, you're going to see stuff that I put out, the odds that you're like hate following or you're going to go like, oh, you should be more of a dick. That's a tough position to take. So I do kind of understand that that's the landscape that I'm working within. I think, however, that like the point is very real. That the coaches who need to hear this stuff, the ones that are creating the worst experiences for kids, that are making them choose to leave, are probably not going to be able to. They're not hearing this message, right? Like I understand what you're saying. Now, but I think the question, that the pertinent part of this is, what's the solution, right? What is the solution? I'm going to tell you that I think we need to draw more parallels to what's going on in teaching with coaching, because I don't think that they're that dissimilar. You have an adult in the equation whose responsibility is to provide stewardship and growth and learning opportunities for a child. We have to send our kids to school. We choose to put our kids into sports. But the output of either one of those decisions is still the same. You're putting your child under the custodial care, maybe not custodial care, under the direct supervision of another adult. And in teaching, academically, I'm doing that at a school where a teacher has been evaluated. A teacher has been trained, certified, evaluated, hired. Right? There's like a multitude of steps along the way wherein that person is deemed to be qualified in order to continue to move up the ranks to the point that you actually have a room full of children whose responsibility it is to keep them safe and to teach them is you. There's at least 4 steps. 4 steps that play out over the course of a number of years. When I started coaching in youth baseball, call it 15-ish years ago, I went to a meeting at my local Little League. They asked who wanted to coach. I was a living person and had a pulse and raised my hand. That's how I got the job. the meantime between when I raised my hand and when I had children under my direct supervision, couple weeks. Was there a certification to go through? Was there training? Was there any systemic way to set up the expectation of the experience that I was supposed to conduct? Longtime listeners know that this is a rhetorical question. None of that stuff exists. None of that stuff exists today. I have a pulse. I am not dead. I raise my hand. I'd like to coach kids. Best case scenario, you get a background check in there. And like those things should be mandatory. Those things should have a centralized repository that is public facing to figure out who is and who is not from just a legal standpoint without any sort of super weird or gross stuff in their history should be a good idea to be around children at onset. We don't have a systemic solution for that. So this thing, coaches that are negatively influencing and negatively impacting young athletes. Heard. We need that. However, the system that we have, and it is a system, in so much as it is ineffective, it's still a system. The system that we have can't even unilaterally check the most basic box. That's coaching. It's what we've created. That is a system we have allowed to be installed. And man, I'm going to tell you, but all this stuff comes back to is universal pitch counts and universal reporting, specifically the reporting aspect of it. Because once you stand up that system, where every player has a unique identifier that push-pull API from different tournaments and leagues and showcase organizations, all this pitching data into one place, the output of which is it's a red light, green light for today, if that kid, based on their prior activity, should be able to throw yes or no. If you stand up that system to track player compliance across different organizations in terms of workload and pitch count, what is stopping us from doing that exact same thing for coaches? What is stopping us from doing that exact same thing from organizations? Why can we not stand up that standard, stand up that system, and now all of a sudden have public-facing information about who's gone through background checks, who's gone through safety certifications, who's gone through sport-specific certifications, how many objections have they had, how many pitch count violations have they had? All that stuff can live in one place. In doing so, you inherently equip parents to make better decisions about who they should put their children with. It's gonna cost a couple dollars. We're gonna have to burn a couple calories in order to get this system set up. But if you give me a magic wand and a couple dollars and a little bit of influence, it can be built. This is not rocket science. But the system that we have right now, again, W. Edwards Deming, right? Every system is perfectly designed to get the results that it gets. So the system that we have is designed to get the results of we are all too often putting adults in a supervisory role over children without any type of background check, any type of safety certification, any type of idea whether that coach is going to give your child more or less leverage to play this game for longer or quit. That's our system. That's what we got. So, current term, what do you do as a coach? Don't talk about it, be about it. Well, actually do both. Talk about it and be about it. But also, let's acknowledge that we need a better system. And somebody has to take responsibility and it has to be put in a position where we can start to affect some type of change in the environment that prevents this type of BS from happening. Average age of kids quit baseball is 10 and a half. Average amount of time they spend in the game is about 3.5 years. You're doing signing days at 6U and 7U. Some of these kids are going to play the game for longer because they are born with some type of passion for it. Nature or nurture, God knows where that comes from. And ideally, coaches don't ruin it for them. Like I having a conversation with my son and a friend of his this week, and his friend is going to go off and play a college sport. And we were having a conversation about some of the other colleges that he talked to and evaluating the landscape and trying to make the right decision. Some of the coaches he talked to didn't seem like they had the right information about how to develop him as an athlete. And I was trying to explain to my son, like, this stuff, this can happen. And it was really curious because the idea that like a bad coach could be out there that could make you worse is one that he just really, like at onset, could not wrap his brain around. And initially, I thought it was funny. And look, man, not to say that like every day that I coached him when he was younger that like I was always right. I think I've tried to be really upfront and forward about the fact that like when I was a younger coach and a younger parent, I got a lot of stuff wrong. I had him do some dumb stuff. The verbiage that I used was wrong. The cueing that I used was wrong. Certainly something I've been very upfront about. The fact is like my emotional attitude sometimes was wrong. I know that we walked off the field sometimes where he felt crappy about the experience because I was too much of a dick. It was too intense. It was too intense for his age. It was inappropriate. I just got lucky, man. I got really, really lucky that the stuff that I screwed up didn't ruin it for him. And to a degree, again, I was able to course correct and like not be as dumb of a coach as I was when we started. But like, sitting there, but by, absent that stuff, my son has had a very protected experience. Either I coached him or he was here. So he's working with coaches that are way better than me. So this idea that like coaches could make you worse and him just like that not computing was hilarious. Because like, of course that doesn't land for you. And there's nothing I could be more proud about than it doesn't. But as we start to work into this next phase of things and trying to figure out where's the right fit for him in college and which school that might be, if he's lucky enough to get an opportunity to play, maybe not lucky, if he's earned an opportunity to play, how about that? That's a thing, man. You could get in a bad system with a coach who has the best of intentions to do everything they can possibly develop you, and they are working with outdated information or stuff that's just straight up wrong, and it's going to make people worse. That's a thing that happens too. Point being, to bring it all the way back, I think if we have a systemic issue of bad coaching, if we have a systemic issue of lack of transparency about who is and is not equipped at the most basic and fundamental level to be in a supervisory, in a teaching role with children, well, then look at the system. Look at the system. The system doesn't exist. So of course that's the situation that we're in. The system we have is the absence of system at scale. So this is the output. I don't disagree. Bad coaches aren't going to hear it. They're not going to change. Fine. I, on a personal level, if we don't see some movement, if we don't see some movement, maybe your boy's just going to throw himself in a cloud code and I'll build the flipping thing myself. Maybe that's what it takes, because I'm sick and tired of waiting. I'm sick and tired of waiting, and I'm sick and tired of going in here on a week-by-week basis and doing the Youth Baseball Bummer Power Hour and knowing that there are systemic solutions to these type of problems. We need a solution at scale. And the fact of the matter is that there are people right now who have the capacity, much more so than I do, to be able to stand up some systems, and that hasn't happened yet. And while that is unfortunate, I am going to view this as an opportunity to be able to provide some type of influence and input into some of the things that I think need to get done in the ecosystem of youth baseball. I think it is almost litigiously bad that we haven't taken these steps yet. And I am so freaked out and concerned about the future of our game that I think we need to take these steps because globally, coaching quality needs to go up. Globally, things like background checks, this shouldn't even be a conversation. But absent a system that confirms this information, why wouldn't it be? Every system is perfectly designed to get the result that it gets. This is the result of the system that we have. There is no means at scale with which any parent can evaluate a coach, an individual, or an organization at large for their type of compliance in the most basic stuff. It doesn't exist. So we got to build it. Got to build it. Let's talk about disruption. Let's talk about some other stuff that's going to make me a little bit fired up. Sorry, you guys are just getting like both barrels today, and I didn't really intend for it to go that way. I thought like talking about the 6U signing day thing was going to be a little bit funnier than it was, and I think instead it just made me mad. So now you're getting that energy, and like I promise, I'm actually in a great mood. I hope that you are too. I hope that your day is great. I hope your week is great. We're getting ready to like play baseball. We're like less than a month away from high school starting, man. Like this is a great time. I'm in a great mood. But it was also very hard for your boy to not get like irrationally angry about stuff like this. So let's talk about the bananas, man. So Jesse Cole, who's founder of the Savannah Bananas, put up a video that went out January 27th, so roughly about a week ago. And it says that the caption is "The next frontier for banana ball. Youth sports has its challenges. It's expensive, overly competitive, and often inconvenient for families. It will take a lot of work to create something that is new and different, but we are ready for the challenge." And man, I think we got to talk about this. I think if you are crazy enough to listen to a niche podcast like this, you are aware of the Savannah Bananas, right? I don't need to get a preamble there. Let's just skip that. So bananas are doing something that I think is inherently a little bit disruptive when it comes to baseball as an entertainment product. I think that's the way that I would frame it. The show that they put on is intentionally a show in a way that Major League Baseball just isn't. Like, it's different that way. There are elements of it that are absolutely shared, but a Major League Baseball game, if you go out and it ends in a 1-0 tie after 24 innings, nobody cares really about the entertainment aspect of it. What we care about is being on the right side of that W at the end of those 20-plus innings, right? Like, the game is about performance. Harkens back ultimately to, the Romans and gladiators and, like who wins, right? Who wins? And I think you would actually make the argument in the Coliseum that a lot of that stuff was a little bit more, I guess, what the bananas are doing. So let me correct myself, that it was, it is actual entertainment. I think we went a little bit different direction with baseball, so maybe not as much Roman inspired, but like Olympic inspired. How about that? Well, I'll fix my analogy. And the bananas are doing their own thing, and it's wonderful. It is a wonderful entertainment experience. But they're also starting to expand into youth baseball. And that's what this post is about. It's the idea that that they would start to move into that space. And I said pretty plainly, disruption is a good thing. And if that disruption comes in the form of maximizing for the fun and engagement of children playing baseball, that's unilaterally a good thing. Bananas put on a youth baseball tournament last summer. I don't know if everybody knows this. I know some folks over in the org. Vero, Bart, what's up? And they had kids just sign up. And you couldn't sign up as a team. You had to sign up as an individual, which is fires me up, right? And they brought these kids out and they did a banana ball tournament. And they did banana ball in a way that is directionally accurate to how they do banana ball with the big boys. So it's the show, right? So it's the walk-up music, it's the trick plays, it is really leaning a little bit more into entertainment and fun. And not necessarily just like fun for the audience, but fun for the kids playing. And so I put this out, got like a decent amount of pushback. Do you want to walk up and watch kids dance? Like, oh, it's not baseball. And like, man, you're missing the point. You're missing the point. In the marketplace economy of ideas, there is no guarantee that kids 5, 10, 20 years from now are going to want to choose the 3-up, 3-down version of baseball that we love. Why would they choose that? Why would they choose that? Their parents grew up knowing that banana ball was the thing. Their parents associated the idea of banana ball with fun. They wanted their kids to do a fun thing. Hence, what does youth banana ball look like in 10 years? I mean, I can tell you that, if you listen to what Jesse is saying, they have some pretty lofty goals, and they have some very specific stuff that they're trying to attack. Current configuration of the game at the youth level, it's too expensive. You're getting nickel and dimed for all this ridiculous stuff, parking fees. The travel is brutal. And again, I will make the point that that's a choice, but so long as that choice continues to be normalized, it's hard to fault parents who make the normal choice. Ultimately, those two things, the logistics, the cost, end up affecting access. It affects equity. So their goal, what he's talking about pretty plainly is, what does it look like to have 1 million kids playing banana ball? So call it 15% market share, roughly. I mean, who knows what the size of the ecosystem will be by the time that they get there, but is it a bad thing if 15% of all kids playing baseball are playing a banana ball version of baseball? Explain to me, how is that a bad thing? It's different. It's definitely different. But I'm not sure how this is a bad thing. And there's a presumption, I suppose, in there that if kids are only doing the banana ball stuff, that they're maybe somehow missing an opportunity to learn some of like the very highly domain specific stuff that you do when you're playing straight up 3-up, 3-down, 90-foot baseball, right? Like that it presents some type of like risk to the game. Disruption is a good thing. If we don't think seriously about a more engaging way at scale to teach these kids and get them engaged in the game of baseball, why would we expect that they're going to stay? Why? We expect them to make the same choice that our parents made for us? Put a ball and a bat in our hands? Sign you up for T-ball to coach pitch to kid pitch, minors, majors. What was it? Minors, majors, Babe Ruth, Legion. Again, I'm very old. Nobody's beholden to the choices of our forebears. Like, that's not a thing. And I think Jesse's calling it out, right? It's going to be hard. He says in there, like, to do the unscalable, they have to do the unscalable to do the scalable, right? It sounds like when they ran their youth event, it was like very labor intensive, very hard. And they're not quite sure how that they scale up, but they know that they need to get there, and they're committing to do the unscalable so they can get to scalable. Guys, pretty smart. And I think the thing they're talking about a lot is this idea of like you need to be very fiercely protective of the experience. And I think in talking to some people that I know over that way, I think what they started to see, and the reason that they almost got pushed in this direction, is that there were other people, not them, that were running some sort of like bootleg banana ball experience, but not doing it right. So what Jesse's talking about is having this like tightly controlled experience so that it delivers on all the parts of their value prop is a thing that they feel like they need to protect because that's the mechanism that turns the wheel, right? They could, I guarantee you, they could stand up 20 banana ball tournaments across this country and farm it out, almost franchise it, right? And put this in the hands of independent operators that they don't control, that they don't trust, that they don't know. And they would make fistfuls of money. But it's not about that. It's about delivering on this tightly controlled and fiercely protected experience, because that's the thing that put them to the position they are right now, where they're selling out MLB stadiums. So you know what? I like the idea of what the world looks like if Banana Ball has a 15% of market share in the youth space. Fires me up. Because if they're earning 15% of that market because they're fiercely protected and they're delivering fiercely protective of their experience, and they're scaling only in a way that they can continue to deliver on that stuff, it doesn't matter if it's slow burn. It doesn't matter if it's slow burn. All they have to do is just continue to make it fun. This isn't rocket science. Make it about the kids. Make it about the customer. Oh, and that's how you win? Cool. You start small, you incrementally scale, and make sure that you keep the most tightest reins on that thing, and you'll get to the place you're going to go. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to win that 15% marketplace all day long. And it's up to guys like me and other people and other men and women in this space who, if I don't want to lose players to Banana Ball, I probably need to start thinking a little bit more specifically and a little bit more seriously about how I make this thing more fun. Kids like fun. If the experience is more fun, and it's more fun for the parents to not see their kid all stressed out about baseball, but instead reveling in the joy of it, they're going to make that choice. They're going to buy Banana Ball tickets. They're going to put their kids at Banana Ball tournaments. They're going to do the thing that their kids enjoy. So I like the idea of a world where 15% of all the kids in the ecosystem are playing Banana Ball, because I think it forces the other 85% to consider what we need to do in two specific directions. What do I need to do to win back that kid? What do I need to do to keep my own side of the pool more fun? And if kids are going to go from Banana Ball to straight up, three down baseball, what are the gaps, right? What are the things that I need to? What are the things that I need to take responsibility for as a coach and as a teacher that need to be a little bit more refined, right? Because I think ultimately the goal for any youth baseball experience, Banana Ball or otherwise, should still have an eye towards two things. Number one, make it the most fun and engaging experience as possible in the current term, and build skills that are going to allow you to be a competitive 90-foot baseball player when that inevitably lands at your doorstep. That's it. Those are the two things: fun and engagement, and build the skill. And if Jesse and Adam and Bart and those boys over at the Bananas figure that out faster than everybody else, then God bless them. Good for them. Good for them. And it should be a good thing that they apply pressure to the other 85% of the ecosystem, because of the signal that's being sent about what customers actually want, and understanding that deeply. So I think it's a good thing. Fires me up. I mean, and I'm not saying that to say that like I don't want there to still be professional Major League Baseball. Like, I still want to see the best in the straight up, 3 down, 9-inning, 90-foot version of the game that I fell in love with as a kid, watching the Dodgers on ABC Wide World of Sports with Vin Scully on the call. Right? I want that to still be a thing. I think you are going to have players who come up in Banana Ball who might look to make that transition at some point. But look, man, you know, we can gnash our teeth about whatever degree that, like, oh, it's not baseball, or, oh, there's things that they're going to be learning. You know, one of the things that they're learning in Banana Ball is that you have to be, like, highly skilled to do all the cool, fun stuff, right? And that they're presenting it in an environment that, like, it encourages kids to take those type of risks and have that type of fun and to try new stuff. Maybe that's the environment that they need to be learning in anyways. Maybe that's signal that we need to take from the experience they present in youth banana ball and bring that more into baseball. And that, my friend, is very different than playing 6 innings over the course of, or 6 games over the course of 2.5 days on a weekend and then flying somewhere else the next weekend to the exact same damn thing over and over and over. So good on them for being disruptive. Fires me up. Youth Baseball Bumper Power Hour is very back, right? What else do we got? Okay, I promised a deep dive. Let's talk about a deep dive. So look, I was looking at some data on some of our older players over the course of this last offseason. And what I pulled was 5 months of HitTrax data across 3 players. And in those 3 players, they're ones that have literally like been under our walls, right? So same systems, same coaching, some individualization on the drill stuff, right? Like not everybody gets the exact same drill package. And trying to understand in those 5 months what changed from like where those kids were in August to where they were at the end of January, I think is when I pulled the sample. And the biggest thing, right, when you're tracking these kids was consistency. That's the biggest variable across these 3 players. And that consistency or lack thereof from some of that kids that in that group resulted in this gap of performance between kind of how they were when they started in August versus how they were at the end of the sample period. And like, and the TLDR here is fairly stark. The gap between the most and the least consistent player, the gap in performance between how those kids measured up in August versus how they measured up at the end of January almost doubled. And that is the effect of consistent stimulus and care about development and getting better. So we had these 3 kids basically started tracking August 25, ran some data through about mid to tail end of 2026. So the big variable, because the environment was the same, because the training was the same, and the drill package just varied from player to player, the big difference was who shut up the most. And here's at the end of this how we landed, right? Player 1, 2,975 batted balls. So 3,000 batted balls in 5 months. Call it 600. Call it 600 a month. And to get really specific, this is only the stuff that we track on their HitTrax player profile. So let's talk about what's not tracked. Anything done in our drill cages with the smash factor balls doesn't show up here. Any swing and misses where a ball is not hit in the field of play also doesn't show up here. And the way that our sessions work for players this age is they come in for an hour-long hitting session. It's 20 minutes of drill work, smash factor balls typically, and then 40 minutes of competition work. So that's going to be versus the iPitch pitching machine on at a 60-foot 6-inch distance. So player 1 has a little under 2,800 batted balls. 2,800 batted balls strictly off that iPitch. So if they had another, let me do some rough math here. So if they had 2,800 batted balls plus another, plus another 1,400 in the drill cages, that's about 4,200 batted balls in 5 months. Good work, right? Player 2, under the exact same time period, 975 batted balls. Lot less. Kid just didn't show up. Again, all 3 of these players were really fairly similar in August. Player 1 shows up a lot. Player 2 hardly shows up. Player 3, 1,000, 1,500 batted balls, right? So in total, what you end up with is player 1 and basically 3x the reps of player 2 and still almost double the reps of player 3. Now, when these kids started in August, player 1 was already ahead in terms of like the skill output stuff. So we're talking about top 8th exit velocity, max exit velocity, average exit velocity. Player 2 and 3 were basically almost identical. Their top eights were like within a mile an hour of each other. So basically, we've got two players that are starting in the same place who are very close to another player who performs a little bit better than them, and then you enter into training environment, right? And one accumulates 60% more batted balls than the other kids over the course of this 5 months. So where we went now, at least when I pull the data, player 1 around a 97, 98-ish mile an hour top eighth. Again, and top eighth is like one of the measurements we use for exit velocity. Basically means your top 1/8 of all batted balls. So we're not looking at like one single swing max EV, which is great. We're trying to understand like when you're going good, what does that actually look like? Player 2, top eighth around 90, 91 miles an hour. Player 3, top eighth around 87, 88. Here's what happened over the course of those 5 months. Player 1 versus player 2. So this is the player from the most batted balls to the least. Player 1 and player 2 started around 5.8 miles per hour apart in top eighth. Now they're 6.6 miles an hour in separation. So a slight widening of the lead. Player 1 versus player 3. This is a player 3 is the one who, again, player 1 still almost doubled their batted balls. Those players were 6.4 miles an hour apart. Now they're around 10 miles an hour apart. So nearly doubled. Player 2 and player 3 were basically twins when they started in August. Now they are around almost 4 miles an hour apart. So I think there's some stuff to take away here. And the one thing I think that is just like the biggest thing is you can't want it. It isn't a wanting contest. Player number 1 in this category was clearly like the best hitter of the three. But that kid, again, nearly doubled their lead over these other two players because they were the most consistent in training. Development doesn't happen by accident. It's not a wishing contest. You have to put in the work. And the point that I'm kind of trying to make here is like, if you really want to play college baseball, that's one thing. Do you really want to show up consistently to do the work that's going to allow you to develop to earn a college baseball roster spot? Because if those two things aren't in alignment, now we're back on the wish principle. Boy, I wish I could play in college. I wish I could play. Yet you're going to be doing a lot of wishing because you're spending more time doing that than you are in actually putting in the work. Break it down even a little bit more, a little bit more specifically, right? We got about 2,800 batted balls. You're calling it 140-ish batted balls per week. And again, this is just the stuff that's on the iPitch. Player 3, around 75 batted balls per week. So a little bit like half of the training consistency. Player 2, 50 batted balls a week. Call it 10 a day in 5-day-a-week training. Man, you can't get better at something doing it that inconsistently. You just can't. And part of the reason that, like, I don't know, man, I think at the end of the day, like, you need to fall in love with the process of development as much as you fall in love with the game and where you want to go in it, because falling in love with that process of development is actually the thing that's going to help you burn the calories and want to burn the calories in order to get better. Again, college baseball recruiting is not a charity landscape. They're not giving out roster spots because you want them. They're not giving them out because they have to. They don't. They have to find the best players available. And the best players available, unless you're really, 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 really lucky, are generally going to be the ones who want to put in the work. So work this all the way back to 6, 7, 8U baseball and what we talked about originally. You want them to fall in love with the game. You want them to fall in love with the act and action of it. You want them to fall in love with the process of it. If you are a coach and you treat people, and specifically kids, in a way that pushes them away from that as an endpoint, then you should probably stop, or you should fix yourself. If the Savannah Bananas in youth baseball take 15% market share because they execute an environment and they're fiercely protective of an environment that makes it more likely for kids to want to show up and do baseball stuff. I mean, we're talking about this idea that, like, oh, if kids just could play nothing but banana ball, they're going to be behind the curve. What if they're ahead of the curve? What if they're ahead? What if they're ahead because they really love baseball and they want to do it all the time and they want to do fun stuff and want to do stuff that includes like a high degree of skill? Trick plays. Those aren't easy. That's why you call it a trick play. It's not a moral judgment. You know, like it's just reality. If you're not putting in the reps, the gap between the players that you want to be better than and you is only going to widen. And I'm not trying to judge you. I'm not trying to say you're a bad person, but I'm saying that your behavior is not in consideration of where you want to go. So I think one of the ways that you can like take a little bit of signal out of this is if you don't have access to a HitTrax and you don't have any of the like the data stuff that we have, but you got a bucket of baseballs. How many times are you filling that bucket during hitting sessions over the course of a week? When Danny and I used to go hit, Danny and Cora and I used to go hit at like our local field, I'd bring in a bucket of mini hitting plyos and a bucket of baseballs. And that bucket of baseballs generally had like somewhere around a little bit more than 30, a little bit less than 40 baseballs in it. So call it 3 rounds of 6 plus some change for each kid. And we'd go out, hit through the bucket, go pick them, come back, hit through the bucket, go pick them. We'd get through the bucket at least 2 to, if not maybe 3 times, depending on the day. Track it. And talk to your kids about it. Guys, we went through 3 buckets today. You have fun? Yeah, that was awesome. Tight. You're never going to get to where you want to go unless you love it. And if you love it, you're going to do the work that's allow you to get you to where you want to go. That's the paradox. So if you don't understand, like that's the reason we spend so much time talking about engagement and fun and love, is because that's the pathway to get these kids closer to where they want to get. And ultimately, you know, you're going to land at a place where it is their decision and their decision only about how far they want to press on that thing. And that's what it should be, right? Like I don't want to be, I'm not the driver in my son's college baseball experience. There's probably other things he could have done in the last 6 months to present himself and email more college coaches and figuring out some camp schedules. And he's getting there, but he's had other stuff going on because he's a 16-year-old kid. So I help. I try to suggest some things, and we're getting better about that stuff. But like, it's his journey. It can't be mine. It can't be mine. I'm not emailing a college coach on his behalf. I know a lot of them. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it because he needs to own it. Because that is the stage that we're at. But when you're talking about, you know, 6, 7, 8, 12, 14-year-old kids, count how many buckets you go through when you go hit at the field. Do that. And show it to them. Hey, do you know over the course of the last 6 weeks, we hit 6 buckets a week? You've hit 36 buckets of baseballs. That's awesome, dude. Keep going. Using data. I mean, don't tell anybody, obviously. Like, don't tell anybody. Don't use a tape measure. Don't use a stopwatch. Definitely don't use a clock. But that's data. And that's data that you can communicate to your athlete at damn near any age to let them know, like, hey, man, all that work that we're putting in, It's moving towards something. That perspective is going to serve them well in baseball. It is also going to serve them well over the majority of the rest of their lives, because that's the thing. I think that's about all I got. Do you want to... I'll give a wrestling anecdote. Maybe this will just land for my wife and my wife only, but that's fine. We're watching the WWE Unreal thing on Netflix. I don't know if it's a documentary or a show or however you want to call it. I mean, this is all kayfabe, right? But they're talking to this woman named Io Sky, and Io Sky is a Japanese wrestler who has like a very acrobatic style. Like she jumps off the top of the top rope and off the top of the rings and off of, you know, stanchions in the seating area. Like she'll just fly. And famously, she's had a couple spots where she will get on the top of a cage over the wrestling mat and put a garbage can over her head and then jump and do like a somersault in the air. And it's a crazy, crazy, crazy thing that like no logical, sane person should ever do. But in Unreal, they're talking to her about it. And, you know, she like English is not her first language. Her English skills are developing. But she does say, she goes, I want to be special. And that's why she does all this crazy stuff. And when you're thinking about those three players, right? The one that has 2,800 batted balls, one that has about 1,500, one that has like 900. I think if you asked each one of those kids, they would probably tell you that they do all want to be special. But you know, like the marketplace economy of opportunity is that it's generally going to go not to the ones who just talk about it, the ones who be about it, right? One of the first movies I ever saw in a theater was a movie called Megaforce. And Megaforce looked like G.I. Joe come to life. So as a, I don't know, call it a 6-year-old kid or however old I was when I saw that movie, it was absolutely captivating. And it's a silly movie. Like it's very, very silly and ridiculous. I don't even know if you can find it on streaming. So I don't know, you can come over to my house. I'll throw the VHS copy of it that I have in the player. But the poster of it is one that you can find online, and it's very, 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 very awesome. Center of the poster is Ace Hunter, you know, the main character, and he looks super cool, and you know, he's got a pretty dark-haired woman on his arms. Oh, wait, was she blonde? Oh, hold on. You know what? It doesn't matter. It's not germane to the discussion. Anyways, but on the poster above him, is it above or below him? Anyways, it says deeds, not words. Boy, when I saw that at 6, I had no idea what that meant. It sounded tough. I had no idea what it meant. But I think as an older person who kind of came back to Megaforce, man, that deeds, not words thing says a lot. It says a lot for a stupid action movie from action B movie from the early 80s, more than it deserves to say, probably. Even though I do love that movie dearly. You know, man, that deeds not words thing, it means a lot. And, you know, like there's levels to this whole thing, right? Like there's this introductory experience that we present where it should just be about fun and engagement. You're not trying to make children think consequentially about any of this stuff. You just want them to exist in this world where like they do the thing more frequently because the thing that they do more frequently is fun. Then at a certain point, it can and it probably should switch. Right? I'll just talk about it, be about it. Deeds, not words. I don't want to see that switch flipped too early. Because I do think, much like the signing day, much like the other stuff we've talked about, that flipping that switch too early does put a kid in a position where you're imparting a level of consequence that's ill-suited for the number one thing you need to optimize for, which is like you want them to love it. And just because they love it doesn't mean that it always needs to make you feel good. I mean, that is the thing that our game is uniquely qualified to teach, which is like how you deal with and persevere through circumstance. Our game is better equipped to teach that than darn near any other. So I don't think you need to lean into that thing too early, but eventually, certainly when the age starts with 2 digits and not 1, you can start to, I think, help kids understand this thing, man, like deeds, not words. Don't tell me about it. Do it. Don't tell me that you want to play Division I college baseball and then show up 25% of the time. I don't believe you. You don't believe you. You say that thing because it makes you feel good, but you shy away from the work that you know that that thing will entail. But at the end of the day, I do believe that when you get to that point where deeds, not words becomes relevant, those kids that are much more likely to exhibit the behavior that that phrase exemplifies are the ones that love it the most, and the ones who fall in love with the process of development the most. I think those are the kids. And then ultimately beyond that point, man, it's just, it's up to luck and God and who knows how many other people to see how far you can go. But deeds, not words, man. Megaforce, go check it out. That's all I got. I think by talking about 6U signing and 7U signing days and universal pitch counts, universal reporting, and banana ball at the youth level, longitudinal develop, and the reason that consistency is so important, and Megaforce and wrestling, I don't know that I could touch on any other of like my favorite topics in this specific podcast. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. My name is Deven Morgan. I'm Down by Law. I will catch you next time. Thanks. Bye.